welcome back, S'mores, to Beyond the Campfire. Steve and I seem to have swapped roles today because I'm the one on the road. He's not. Call me Willie Nelson, because we're on the road again. Um, yeah, welcome back to Beyond the Campfire. If you're new here, we are a podcast, a cowboy and Indian duo who dive into the unknown, things that are beyond the campfire. If you're new here, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you guys follow us on Instagram and X at Beyond Campfire. Yeah, we come out with these new weekly episodes. And today, Stephen, where are we going?
Today we have a alien abduction case in Pascagoula, which is in oh man, I should have my notes with me. I think it's in Mississippi, but we're talking about
Mississippi.
yeah, there we go, right? So we're talking about the Hinson and Parker case. These were two guys that were working, by the river, doing some fishing or something, and apparently they encountered a strange, maybe out of this world phenomena, right? So we're gonna get into
Oh,
their story. This is Mississippi in the 70s, right? Early 70s, 1973. So UFOs pretty popular around the time. It's gonna be a little from one of the other abduction stories we talked about, because I feel like some of the abductions we've talked about, people came forward years, sometimes even decades later. The timing of this one is going to be really, really interesting to the story. Also, what the police did, right? Which, maybe some people will say was unethical what the police did, but what the police did kind of made it seem maybe even more credible that they were telling the truth, right? So, all of that, that's just a quick, dirty preview. Were there aliens actually in this case? Were there not? Well, me and Will are going to give you the facts, and then we'll kind of go give our thoughts, and you can decide for yourselves what you think. So anyway, as of right now,
yeah, that sounds good.
Will is still a believer in aliens. I am still most
Yes.
skeptic. Um, I
We're
kind of
getting
take
him there. We're getting him there, guys. It's,
yeah,
it's, it's a slow process.
I usually take these things case by case, right? I feel like some alien abduction stories are stronger than others, and so you guys will get to see whether this is one of the stronger or weaker ones. Um,
Be really crazy is because I'm driving home from work, is if I got abducted live on the podcast.
yeah, I'll just be here yapping about some, boring Mississippi River history, and then all of a sudden you just hear like weird metallic,
Stop! Get away! Get away from my butt!
right? So
And
that
what
that
makes it
would
worse, the camera off, so you won't know what's going on. Like, am I actually being abducted? Just goofing off.
yeah. One of the stronger alien stories, and I promise we'll get into this case like in depth in just a second. Um, I think it was in Australia. There was a pilot, and they actually like had audio of like this weird, strange
Yeah,
metallic going off right before he just
Frederick Valentich.
yeah, yeah, and that one was there was the audio. He disappeared. There's weird things going on, and then people like off the coast said they saw like a lot of weird lights following his plane. So that one like was I was very, very close to believing like yeah, something extraterrestrial was at play with that case. Um,
Because for me, I hope the podcast can hear you clearly. Because for me, really out because you know,
oh, you're cutting out.
my cell service is spotty.
Well,
Yeah, my cell service is spotty because I'm like
I'm happy to yap while we're
storm coming.
I'm happy to yap while you're working on getting reception
Yeah,
back.
I hope.
Oh, you're back. There you are.
Yeah, I just hope that it's gonna. I am back. I just hope that it picks up what you're saying, because like if it's I'm having a host, you know what I mean?
Well, viewers, comment below in the comments and section and let us know whether this is working or not. I don't think we said anything really significant the last minute and a half, so it might not matter anyway. Okay, lest we waste our viewers' time anymore, let's go ahead and get into it. So, the year is 1973. You have these two guys. I don't remember if it was Calvin Parker or Calvin Hinson, and then the other guy. I don't remember off the top of my head. Don't worry, guys. I'm almost to where I'm at in like the next 30 seconds. But one of them has been in the trade for a while. 43-year-old dude. You know, kind of been doing his trade for a couple of decades, maybe a couple of decades and a half. The other guy, younger dude, 18 or 19, depending on kind of what report you look at. And they're fishing. They're working on the Pascagoula River in Mississippi. And, by all accounts, pretty ordinary day. Until
Uh-oh.
the both of the
Somebody found their secret fishing hole and they got mad.
yeah. So they reported that as they were working, they looked behind them and saw a large metallic floating spacecraft just floating there.
Oh boy.
And they said it was like emitting this weird blue light aura thing. And they said, yeah, they really couldn't tell you what was happening there. But the next part was kind of where things get even more weird. So they then report multiple grayish humanoid beings floating out of the spacecraft. Not walking
No,
out of
they're
the
not
space-
walking.
Yeah, they're not walking. They're not walking out of it. They're not out of it. They're not crawling out of it. They are floating.
Hey, I'm floating here. High-kick spacecraft in the yard. I'm floating here.
Right. And so then they report these multiple alien beings with grayish skin, no neck, stubby, round-footed legs and feet, and arms that had pincers and claws at the end started to float towards them. As far as their face, no eyes, split for a mouth, and where you would normally expect a nose to appear, you had these cones coming out of the nose, and you had
They had a cone nose. I've heard of the cone heads, but I never heard of the cone nose.
so they had a cone nose, and then they had like cones also coming out of their head as well. So very very odd looking whatevers, right?
Bunch of no neck, pencil pinching, cone head looking freaks.
So
If I was fixing to be abducted by these people, I would bully the crap out of them.
nope, we might have lost you again.
I would.
Or
No, I'm
maybe
good. I'm here.
captured Will.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're not using lube for the probe. It hurts.
So they float towards Parker and Henson, and Parker and Henson are like, "What world is going on?" They are not understanding what's happening here, right? They then report being grabbed. Well, not grabbed by their tentacles or pincers. They felt like they were grabbed by some invisible force, and as they picked up, they were brought into the spacecraft. They reported being examined. They said that these aliens were using all these tools, kind of like scanning them, seemingly gathering information, and saying, kind of like making notes. And then the aliens use their telepathic whatevers take the two of them out of the spacecraft, throw them back onto the river, and then the ship flies away, presumably, never to be seen again.
So they pulled them on their spaceship,
Yep.
and then they flew away.
Oh, yeah. So, just, yeah, weird set of circumstances. Yeah, I think that really is. The whole encounter lasted, according to them, only a few minutes. The thing that's interesting is what happens afterward, right? So, well, before that, any questions, thoughts, or comments?
So what I'm understanding from this timeline is they were working on the river, and then they saw the craft, these no neck pencil. Um, they come out. They come out of their spaceship. They float. Then they use the force to grab them and bring them in the spaceship, and then they do their things to them for like a couple minutes, and then they're gone.
Use the force, Luke. Yeah, yep. That.
Use the force, you no neck freak.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, just yeah, altogether, just very, very odd, very odd set of
That is
circumstances.
very odd. I
Um,
mean, it's not like normal alien abduction stories you hear either.
yeah. Now, is it believable? Right. That's really what we're gonna get into next. Most alien abductions, like you can look at the Betty Hill case and the guy she was with, right? And they didn't say anything to anybody for years after
Yeah.
case, right? And it wasn't until like they were put under hypnosis by somebody that they started to recall memories of what happened that night. Um, with these two guys, they reported basically immediately. And that's what I would say differentiates this case from several other cases. So they
Yeah.
go to the police station that evening and tell the officer, hey, here's what happened. I know it sounds crazy, but like we both saw this, we both experienced something
Yeah.
that happened to both of us. And we don't know we know it sounds strange, but we just don't know who else to report it to, right? Cop, probably eating his donut, drinking his coffee. He's like, these guys, what are you guys talking about, right? The past one on us. So he's like, guys, he's like, there's a police station, there's a serious business. You guys need to get out of here, okay? Like, we're investigating so many crimes. We don't got time for this. We don't have time to deal with stories of alien creatures poking and prodding you on the Pascagoula River.
Yeah.
And Henson and Parker are like, no, this actually happened. Like, we're not making this up. So sheriff talks to his fellow cops. He's like, I don't believe these guys. These guys crazy. But you know what? Let's put them in the interrogation room by themselves. Let's secretly record them. Once they're by themselves, if they say something like, "Hey, do you think we fooled them?" Case closed. These are just, a middle-aged dude and a teenager just having fun on a Tuesday evening or whatever, right? So they put the tape recorder in there. Henson and Parker have no idea. They click record, and instead of Henson and Parker saying like, "Ha, yeah, we got those cops," you think they believed us? Henson and Parker continued to show like real fear. They're like, "Oh my goodness, what's going to happen? Are we going to be okay? Do you think there's going to be any long-lasting effects of like, what these creatures did to us?" The older guy, I think it was Henson or Parker, right? Like he comes back up and he's just like, I feel like my brain is just like psychologically falling apart. Like I feel like I'm mentally and intellectually becoming undone. So cops listen to this and they're like, we don't know what they saw, but whatever they saw, they do seem to think that this is real. Um, and so police file a report. They say, hey, let us know if you find anything else. And we'll kind of investigate it from there. So, yeah, Sheriff of Jackson County, Mississippi, kind of just goes from there, and they leave it. So they later went to the Mississippi Press, shared their story. On October 12th of 1973. Did I say when this event happened? I don't think I did.
You said it took place in 1973.
Okay, it happened in October 11th, 1973.
Oh, that's 4 days before your birthday.
is- yeah, I know, right? So, yeah, it was, around 11 p.m. is when they reported, right? But yeah, Charles, I think I've been saying Hinson. I think it's actually Hickson. I apologize, guys. But yeah, Charles Hickson, he was the older one. Calvin Parker's the younger one. Yeah, the next day, the two of them scheduled a press conference. It was canceled. However, that same day, Associated Press picked up the story, covered it in papers nationwide. The two men were taken to Keesler Air Force Base, were kind of questioned, examined. Officials there cleared them of any radiation exposure. Although the locals did call for federal officials to investigate. And yeah, later it seemed like kind of the conclusion people were coming to is we don't know what they saw, but they did see something. And they actually do believe that
Yeah.
this happened to them.
Well, I think the interesting thing about this is like you said. I mean, there's a lot of differences between this story and some of the other stories. Like you've got we talked about the one that had the movie based off of Fire in the Sky. Like several years later, one of the guys was like, "Yeah, this was fake." Barney and Betty Hill. But like, what's interesting about this case to me is that the cops were like, "These guys are probably just pranking us. They're just pulling our legs. Let's put them in interrogation with recording, and we'll see what they say." With like, if we're not in the room, they're probably gonna be like, "Oh, we got him, man. We just gotta keep playing along a little bit longer, and we'll reel him in." But instead, they're showing actual fear and privacy. That to me just sends up a flag of saying they probably saw something.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, because
So,
yeah,
mhm.
it's just that's the strange part to me. It's like if it was a ruse, that tape recording would have proved it.
Yeah. And where I'm coming from is something they saw something and it freaked them out, right? So
Yeah,
I don't believe these two men are lying. As far as what they saw, I mean, so here's where things get interesting. So this news story starts to spread in October, right?
hmm
And people start to come forward, pretty quickly. Like a fisherman and his 14-year-old son said that they said, yeah, we saw like an illuminated blue object floating on the river that same day. A few other people also came back and they said we were seeing like weird spacecraft or weird lights floating around the river the same day that, Charles Hickson and Calvin Park were saying what they did. Um, for Calvin Parker later reported that he was, being hospitalized because he was dealing with like mental health trauma and having flashbacks and dealing with things. Uh, Hickson. So Charles Hickson, he's the older of the two. He
yeah,
starts like thinking, "Hey, this is nice. I'm kind of famous now." He goes on the Tonight Show, starring Johnny Carson. He speaks on like some other shows. He's like traveling around sharing his story. He's eating up this moment, this 15 minutes of fame. Calvin Parker, the younger guy, right? 17, 18, maybe 19. He doesn't want to talk to anybody about this. He kind of just wants to put it around him, behind him. He, for him, he said this was a really deeply traumatic event, and he'd rather just forget it. So, yeah, other people reporting seeing something makes it even more believable for me. I'm a guy that likes some hard evidence, and like here we have
Yeah.
multiple witnesses, just some weird phenomena over the river. Like it's it's odd, right? It's odd. So
I think what's
Calvin
interesting
Parker
too.
continued. Go ahead. Mhm.
I was just gonna say, I think it's really interesting too. Like you can see the difference between the young guy and the older guy. The older guy, he's probably been around the block a time or two, and is like, you know what? I've been through this life, and I've worked my butt off to get where I need to be, and I've got, even though this was a traumatic experience, my dues, I've paid my dues. It's time for me to get a little something. But for the older guy to like, be young and just be like, you know what? I don't want any of this. Like he wants to go back to being normal and everything. It's interesting to me. The difference between the two.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I got a couple more things, and then we'll wrap up. So, first thing is later on, Parker said he was afraid to share this at first, but a few decades later, and this part I'm a little bit more skeptical of. Parker, a few decades later, he's like, "Hey, you guys know me. I wanted to talk about this, but he's like, I think it's time for me to talk about this." There was more that I remember. It's just I was really scared. I was 18, 19 at the time, but I'm ready to share. I remember more about my probing. Um, I was there on a medical table being examined by the floating cone-headed people. Then they flew away, and another grayish humanoid alien woman, looking more feminine, right, came and she started to examine me. And her hands, having the claws and pincers that the other guys did, she actually had fingers, and so he said she was touching his cheek, like feeling his beat. And he said I feel terrified. And he said he felt like mentally in his mind, the alien lady telling her, "Hey, don't worry, we're not gonna hurt you. Everything's okay. It's just gonna be a few minutes, and we're gonna let you go." Now, this is Parker saying this, right? Hickson's trying to get a lot of fame. He's trying to, eat this up, going on documentaries, doing all these things. Parker was a guy that was, more afraid, right, to really take this
Yeah.
public. So that gives him a little bit of credibility. But also, I don't know. I'm like, why share it decades later, right? I don't know. It's a little odd to me. Any thoughts and
It
comments on
could.
that before I kind of?
Yeah. I think if I think there's a lot of credibility to that. I think, like you said, I mean, the older guy, I mean, took off with the fame. But you got to think about it too. If what's his name was very traumatized by the whole experience, didn't want to really say anything about it, maybe he worked through that trauma and was brave enough to say, you know what, maybe I'll tell you guys some more things, but this is all I want to give you because again, you know, um, he's still traumatized. So I think there's some credibility there where you could take it from a side of, maybe he worked over that trauma to be where he could say, hey, I will talk about this.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I could see a case for that for sure. Um, yeah. Okay, I only have one kind of aftermath thing left, and then we'll kind of talk about what we believe, what we don't. Um, September 2011, Hickson died of a heart attack at the age of 80. So he's been gone for about 15 years. So, you know, any hopes of having him on Beyond the Campfire? Not a possibility, you know. Calvin Parker, the younger of the two, he is also now since passed. He passed in August of 2023 from kidney cancer,
Mm.
and he was 68 years old. So neither of them are now living. But Calvin Parker, the quieter of the two, he actually released a book in 2018 about the incident called Pascagoula, The Closest Encounter, My Story. And it's just a book about who he is, his experience that day, things like that. In June of 2019, a historical marker was unveiled at the site of the alleged abduction. So, Will, if you and me were to go and walk on the banks of the Pascagoula River, we could see a historical marker saying like, hey, a UFO abduction allegedly happened here, right? Parker, now obviously Hickson was dead by that time, but Parker attended the unveiling of the plaque. And he said it was emotional. He's just like, it's kind of interesting to see this come full circle and to see this thing. Last thing I'll say, city of Pascagoula, they hold a festival every October to mark the anniversary of the incident. So if you ever wanted to go to Pascagoula in October around that time, hey, that could be a fun thing to do, maybe, right?
Yeah.
So that's all I have for today. I guess we can talk about what we think now. Well, I've been yapping a lot. What you think, man?
I believe him. I think there's something there. I think with the other witnesses saying they saw something, I think with the way the younger man reacted and how he's been acting, kind of been very slow to release his story. I think that kind of shows that he probably was traumatized by what happened, and it was taking him time to get over that. Because, it took him. This happened in '73, and it took him until 2018 to finally release a book about it. It's like, if they were making the whole thing up, like he probably would release that book as soon as possible. But something happened, something traumatized him to where he had to get over that to finally be able to release something to tell a story. And I think the audio recording is very credible to think like these cops are like, okay, these guys are breaking us, so what are we going to do? We're going to stick a recorder in there, call it good. And then they stick the recorder in there, and they're like, they're going to just fess up at this point because they don't know what's in there. But for them to still be scared, there's a lot of evidence that's just pointing in a direction to say something happened on that river, on that riverbank. Something happened that day to these two men. Now, what could it be? Aliens? I think so. But something definitely happened.
Yeah. I think what really sold it for me was not just a recording, but the other people saying they saw weird flashing lights or like weird space like craft like flying around. With multiple witnesses, it's just like, okay, something was there. Something.
Yeah.
So again, it's hard for me to say exactly what they saw, but I this is one of the very few episodes where I'm like, yeah, I believe these guys. I believe they saw something absolutely extraordinary there. And if I ever do believe in aliens one day, this is going to be one of the stories I look back at and I'm like, yeah, that seemed like extraterrestrial activity to me over there. So
yeah. Well, if you've got nothing else,
yeah, that should about do it for this episode. Just again, weird situation, weird story, and something that the city of Pascagoula still talks about and participates in to this day. So
yeah. Well, thank you guys again for watching. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. And if you're ever floating down the river, be careful of what's on the bank.